Hi everyone, this is Ralph McFall from Dharma Publishing, and today we have episode 2 in our Fresh Perspectives on Problems. And this one is taking a little deeper dive. In the first one we talked about things that relate somewhat to language and how we conceptualize things, the way we think about things. And here I want to draw on a book from Tarthang Tulku called Knowledge of Freedom, Time to Change, which is the first book in the Understanding Self and Mind series. And in chapter 8 called Knowledge and Self, he kind of takes things to a different level. So where we need to look at, maybe you could say, mental structuring and how that may predispose us to a life that pops up with lots of problems. So the key point that he's talking about here in this chapter is the sense of the separation of the self, of the division of in our experience, with where we occupy the position of the self, and then there's, quote, everything else. There's self and other. So I'm going to read a couple of passages and comment. So this is in the middle of the chapter, but it says, today our many forms of knowledge all derive from a view of human being as separate from the environing world. This view comes naturally to us, for it is rooted in our basic perceptual patterns and is reinforced by the integrating and deductive processes of the rational mind. We divide our world into self and other, and establish ourselves as agents acting upon and responding to situations. By this, we commit ourselves to a view grounded in separation. Skip a little bit. This observer considers his position as a doer and knower to be central to experience. If there is no one to know, how could there be knowing? If there is no one to act, how could there be action? This way of understanding, weighted toward a self who must respond to and act upon the world, leads us to react to and evaluate every situation from a fixed point of view ourselves. So this is not something that, at least for me, is immediately obvious, or rather it's so ingrained, like a fish in water, that the idea that I'm over here and everything else is over there is second nature in some way. So we can look in our experience sometimes to see if there are times when it feels less like that. Because the position as the knower and doer, isolated, meaning I'm over here, which means everything that I need or want is somewhere else. So every situation looks like something I need to manipulate in order to get what I want, because somehow everything is held automatically by the mental functioning, structures of mental functioning. Everything is held automatically at a distance. Now let's see what more of the effects of that might be. Read a little more. From the viewpoint of the separate self, it is very difficult to let be, resting in pure observation, without thinking of what we can do as a result of what we are observing. Every situation is an invitation to create another one we view as more desirable. Succeeding situations also have possibilities for improvement, so we repeat the cycle again and again. We act, evaluate, and act again, elaborating upon what we have done before. In a way, that sounds like culturally what we're told to do, is to go in, make things better, and then make things more better. And so it doesn't sound right away wrong, although it sounds a little bit compulsive. So let's go a little farther here. In relating to our world as a problem to be acted upon, we predispose ourselves toward dissatisfaction. Our minds easily look past the positive aspects of any situation and focus upon what seems to be missing or problematic. And then he says, because we value this incisive critical ability, we tend to emphasize it in our educational processes and view it as a hallmark of intelligence. But in reinforcing this approach, we may not notice that we run the danger of training ourselves into a perpetual state of discontent. Because what we need always seems to be a little bit out of reach. So the structural setup of being the knower and the doer makes things appear in a certain way, and I was thinking it actually comes up a little later. What's the other side to this? And in a way, the other side to this is appreciation. If we walk into a situation and the thing that strikes us is what doesn't meet my needs, what doesn't seem right to me, what doesn't fulfill my expectation, then we've strongly positioned ourselves, and we've also identified everything in very particular ways that has filtered down the information in the situation quite a lot. Whereas appreciation is a quality that we can cultivate that really opens us up to what the possibilities are inside any situation, and that can be done on a sensory level, in a mental level, in many different levels that we can engage with appreciation. Because if we don't see that, then we have a very narrow range of options in front of us. So let me read one more little passage toward the end of the chapter. So he says, when we can relax our hold on self-centered positions, we lessen the pressure that intensifies reactive tendencies. So the self as the doer and knower and possessor of knowledge is kind of, it's a little bit of a tense situation. So you're under pressure to respond. Now, he goes to the appreciation point. Allowing more room for appreciation in our lives, we can see situations not so much as problems to be acted upon, but as opportunities for inquiry and learning. This attitude gives us space to observe the scope of our situation more clearly and to discover more effective ways of responding. When we begin to free ourselves from the need to react, even emergency situations can stimulate a new clarity and depth of vision that invite new insights and creative actions. So we might, in light of all that, think a little bit, if you like, in your experience, when you're having a problem, is the sense of separate selfness stronger than when there's no problem? In other words, do those things operate together? Like sometimes, or if you're doing like a Kumye exercise, or Tibetan yoga, where you're really going into body sensations and etc., the sense of a separate one, of a separate feeler of the feeling, starts to melt down and not be very prominent and sometimes disappears. So you can look and see if it's true that a strong sense of self, separated self, accompanies the problematic feelings, and you can also look at the role of appreciation in giving a new perspective that is not so problem-oriented. So thank you. I hope that's helpful, and we're going to do episodes 3, 4, and 5 coming soon. Thank you.